you are into movie-related discussions, you have come to the right place. Who am I, you ask? I am The Wiz, and I'm here today with... Zero. How you doing today?
A little crazy.
Oh, yeah.
But work stuff is starting to ramp up real hard, so just trying to put the chaos at bay until it's time.
Yeah. Oh, man. I am praying for you that things aren't going too crazy, but I remember what it was like when I worked and things got nuts, so good luck on that one. Okay, so we are here today to review the movie The Blues Brothers, starring Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi, directed by John Landis. We discussed this at the end of the last podcast by saying how much of a beloved movie this is for a certain subset of people. When was the first time you heard about this movie, and were you interested in it before we decided to watch it?
I remember kids talking about it back when I was still in high school and stuff like that. Like, oh man, it's so good. And I'm just
Really?
I don't know. But then again, my movie palette wasn't really quite that open when I was younger. I remember during my college years, just heard people talking about it, like, oh man, it's excellent. And I was like, doesn't seem like my kind of thing. So kind of passed on it then. So this was kind of like the first time I was like, all right, I guess I'll give this a crack and we'll see how it is.
Yeah. I'm kind of shocked that it was high schoolers who were saying this movie is good, because there's a lot of old music in this. And if there's anything about my high schoolers that I know from back in my day and our day to now, they think their music is the best. So I'm kind of shocked to hear that.
May have been the fact that I was probably in band and also in marching band as well too, that the folks I was around probably had a real diverse palette on music and everything.
Oh, so you're one of those nerds. Ew. Marching band? That's not true. Marching band people were actually pretty cool, but ew, you fucking nerd. God.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, sweating in the hot sun.
Don't worry. I wanted to be in choir, so let's not even get back. I won't even judge you on that, but just get right into the review of The Blues Brothers, starring Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi, directed by John Landis. Okay, so I want to point out one thing before I started watching the movie. This movie is 2.5 hours long. Like, I couldn't believe it when I started the disc up and I'm starting to watch them. All right, let's watch this. And you get the timer that's on the Blu-ray that tells you, you have 000 to X amount of time. Well, we watched the unrated version. And the first thing I saw is 2 hours and 27 minutes. Like, what? How is this movie 2 hours and 27 minutes? What kind of epic is this? Like, I actually was kind of stunned that I was able to sit through it, because a comedy that long, without it being deadly serious in some points, is kind of rare. Overall, I enjoyed the film, but I have some issues with it, regardless. But this movie reminded me of, immediately, I started thinking of the film Once, that me and Kim reviewed 2 weeks ago, where we really liked the music, but we hated the film part. The thing that made the movie is the parts that we just did not like at all. And I felt the opposite about this movie, where, well, I did like the music. The music is fantastic in this movie. But I also like the film bits, like the comedy, some of the dance numbers and stuff like that. Like, that stuff worked for this movie. And I ended up really enjoying the film for the most part. I have some quibbles with this movie, definitely, but I enjoyed it.
I, too, was shocked to see the runtime, because I was just like, I was mostly like you. I was just like, I don't know if this is going to be good by the end of this, because comedies I'm leery about if they run too long, because at that point it just feels like it's overstayed its welcome. So that too shocked me when I initially started up the movie. I was just like, are we sure?
Yeah. Did you sit there and go, man, why did I choose the unrated version?
Oh no, I mean, the motivation for me to go with the unrated version versus the theatrical one was, my concern was there's probably some jokes that they had to cut out for theater ratings and stuff like that. So I was like, all right, we got to see this in its unadulterated form.
Yeah. I don't think that was the case. I think they did it to shed time. But even then, it was like, I read a little bit of what they put into the unrated version, and honestly, really isn't much. The only thing that that really helped the plot was an explanation as to why the car doesn't get destroyed. That's it. That's really the main thing to help the plot along, which I thought, which when I saw it, I was like, oh, that was kind of pointless, really. But yeah, all the gags, all the jokes are in there. There's nothing that's been cut. We're going to do light spoilers throughout. We're not going to have a spoiler section, so we will spoil certain things in the review, but we have kind of a rule with comedies. We don't spoil jokes, really. So if you're worried about that, don't worry. We're not going to. But for the most part, we're going to have light spoilers throughout. I find it funny that the performances are cheesy and wooden, but it really works in this movie. If I really are to rate like the performances of, let's say, the main characters of Aykroyd and Belushi, they're not great, but I think they're purposely wooden. Like, they're purposely supposed to be like very broad and very I don't know, like they're not great, but I think that's that on purpose. They're supposed to be cheesy on purpose to a certain extent, just like a very dry type of way of delivering their lines. So when the other characters get involved with them, they kind of bounce off of those two. So I think that kind of worked on those characters. The one performance I think I liked the most out of this was Carrie Fisher, which I was stunned when I saw her in this. I was like, what is she doing here? But
Yeah.
but I'll say this. One, I think she's hilarious. And two, I think she's pretty hot in this too, strangely enough. Like, I watched this going, she's always been attractive, but like, man, she's hot in this. Holy shit. I was like, what am I thinking here? In performances, yeah, I think hers was the best, and the two main characters were good in their own way. And even like the peppering of all these pop acts, like James Brown, B.B. King, Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin, those can end up not looking great, but they really fit in the movie, and they actually feel pretty good when you're watching the movie. So like when I saw Ray Charles, I was like, oh, this might turn out bad, but he actually was okay. He was pretty good. So I think the performances are decent in this movie.
Much like you mentioned, the two main characters, they're very wooden, but it's kind of in a corny way, so it works out. For me, I think what really surprised me were all the pop musicians, because I've seen this in like various forms of cinema where they'll say, hey, we've got this super famous, star, athlete, or musician, or what have you, and they're just kind of shoehorned into the movie, and in some cases they've had like zero training on how to act or anything, so usually their performances come off terribly. So it's just like, ooh, I'm not sure inviting this particular athlete to this movie was a great idea, because, it tanked the rest of the movie. And I mean, that's something that I've seen so many times. But yeah, just to see people like James Brown in this and Aretha Franklin, I'm just like, okay, this is interesting. They're very respectable artists during their heyday, but holy crap, they can also pull off the acting bit too.
Yeah, like which is the one that you like the most? I'm really curious about on this one. Like, which pop artist and dance sequence did you like the most?
I think for me, it was probably Ray Charles in the Music Store. I thought that one was freaking insane.
Yeah, me, it's Aretha Franklin's one with Think, and the dance sequence with that and the Blues Brothers was actually pretty damn good, and it was. That scene, I think, was executed perfectly, because it does the plot right, and then on top of that, when the Blues Brothers just kind of step in and dance with them, it really fits really well in that, and it fits with the vibe of the film. I really enjoyed that scene, and it's Aretha Franklin, of course, because she's amazing, so that helps on that end. Let's get into, I guess, writing, the jokes, the way the plot rolls and everything. I found it strange that the film is both dark but slapsticky, and it kind of works in that way. A lot of the film is in like drab places, dark places, rundown areas, things like that, like seedy motels, things like that. When that stuff still works with the broad slapstick comedy that is in the movie. These guys live a very destitute life, and even though they showcase it in the film, there's still a lot of laughs in the film, so they don't dwell on it too much as the movie goes on. I thought that mix was actually interesting and that it worked so well. I will say, I think this film could have been pared down by like 45 minutes. This film is way too long, and there are certain things that happen in the film that just didn't seem very necessary.
It was kind of interesting because, I mean, the intro starts in a pretty somber and morose way. You've got a prison scene and everything, and then immediately, just after the first gag kicks off, you get to the central plot line, and Dan Aykroyd's character Elwood delivers this line repeatedly in such a dry and wooden fashion that it almost comes off as corny. And the gist of it is that they're on an ultimate mission from God.
Yeah.
And just the delivery every time, like, everyone asks the both of them, "What are you doing this for?" Just he'll drop that line, and it's just so hilariously corny. It goes from somber to slapstick, almost kind of on a dime, and then it just kind of goes from there. I think you've got sort of the framing and cinematography that just makes the dank and destituteness of their situation very apparent, and on top of that, they did a lot of showcasing of the city of Chicago. You'll see like certain major landmarks that I'm sure everyone in Chicago is well aware about. But yeah, I think it made for some very good set dressing to kind of dress down the plot. And I think the best one that really shows it off was just the flop house that is the Plymouth Hotel that they're staying at. That is just portrayed as nasty, seedy, and run down.
Yeah, no, definitely. And usually when these types of things, and this is like the same thing that I had a problem with Once, but it works in this one, where Once, everything felt run down, dank, drab, and it brought down the plot to a certain way because it didn't counteract it. But in this movie, we have the same settings to a certain extent, but it actually still maintains its upbeat and comedic tone, whereas Once it's a romance film and it's supposed to be more Hollywood-like, this one is more comedic, and it doesn't bring the tone of the film down. It actually was pretty interesting in that point. I really want to hone down on like certain things that I think did not need to be in the movie. Like we said, this movie is 2.5 hours long. I don't think it needed to be that way. I think it could have been a minute, it could have been an hour 45, maybe even 2 hours. Examples of things I would have taken out: scenes with the Nazi party. I thought that was kind of pointless. Good Old Boys, I thought that was unnecessary. You could have done some scenes in the movie where they're getting the band back together and just wash that away in in like a montage of certain points to get the film start moving along. There were a lot of asides and a lot of things in the movie that kind of dragged the film. By like hour one, it started to feel like it was dragging, but then the musical numbers started kicking in and brought me right back up, which to me just felt like the movie should have been comedic vignette, musical number, comedic vignette, musical number, comedic vignette, musical number, end of movie. But in this movie, it was comedic vignette, plot, musical number, comedic vignette, plot, musical number, where I think the plot was kind of unnecessary. I mean, you have what starts up the entire movie, which is the orphanage is about to be shut down due to a tax assessment, and they need to get $5,000. Dude, that's as much plot as you need to get this movie rolling, because when the plot starts happening is when the film starts dragging. But when the comedy is there and when the music is really pumping, that's where I think the film shined.
There were definitely some parts that felt like they dragged on a bit. I'm with you on the Nazi party bit. I was just like, I don't really know how much this adds. Maybe it was kind of one of those, they get owned so bad, but I mean, just even then, it just didn't really seem like it was a great value add to the whole plot. Then you have some of the musical numbers definitely help pick things up, and I would say that if they had focused more on making this kind of like a musical comedy, then maybe the runtime wouldn't be so bad. But yeah, just some of the plot heavy scenes didn't really seem to add very much value to things, and it just kind of had me questioning, why was this added? I mean, I get it, just they're on the run from a whole bunch of people that they pissed off, but I'm just not 100% sure that, just this adds the necessary value to the story or the plot points.
No, it really doesn't. And I think the big thing that I felt was the end of the movie, which is the big car chase sequence. That was about 15, 20 minutes long. And by that point, I was done with the movie. I was, okay, it's over. Like when they do the final concert and they sneak off, that was a perfect way to end the movie. And then do something like, oh, and the orphanage is okay. And then end the movie right there. You're good. But then they went on a 20-minute car chase throughout all of Chicago, and there's no music. There's really not much comedy except if you want to talk about all the destruction of the cars and everything in that. It just kind of felt pointless at that point. So I'm watching this going, wow, how much more do we have on this? And it keeps going and going. So I thought the way that it ended, specifically when it came to like the car chase, was utterly pointless. I thought that could have been cut completely. I know there are some that actually enjoy that car sequence, but I thought the car sequence throughout the mall was probably the best one. I thought that scene was awesome. That was a really well done, really funny scene. But I think that final sequence really just highlighted like the big weakness, because there was no music. I don't remember hearing any music in that sequence. Do you?
I cannot recall, to be honest.
Yeah, because I know that in the sequence in the mall, it was I Can't Turn You Loose. The background music for that was on there. In that sequence, it doesn't seem like there was much at all, and it was just a means to get all the random plot points to come together. Which at that point, I would have just said, get rid of those plot points. It's like they're not necessary. I did not like the ending.
The ending with the car chase was just absolutely bonkers. Just the amount of carnage and everything. And I think maybe that was the focus of just Elwood and Jake are just so hell-bent on getting the orphanage's bill paid up so bad that they're willing to just wreck the entire city just to get to the county assessor's office. So maybe that's where it is, but I thought it was just an absolutely bonkers scene and everything, and also all the corniness from like the various military and law enforcement groups just like absolutely trying to raid the building and everything. It was pretty wild. But and then it gets to a musical number towards the end, which was a bit fitting to say the least.
Yeah. It's not, that musical number is not bad, but again, I would have preferred if the movie just ended on that last musical number, which was the one in the concert. I thought if you ended it there, you would have been great. There was just another 20-25 minutes where I was like, this should have ended already. But I had serious issues when it came to the plot in this movie, but if I'm being honest too, is the plot that important? Not really. Not really. So some of the comedy and the musical numbers are great in this movie. I just wish they would have cut the film down a bit. Not even just a bit, like a good amount. Like I'm saying like 45 minutes could have been cut completely, and I would have been perfectly fine.
I thought most of the writing was all right, but I think really what sets it apart is just all the musical numbers and just how they sort of ease themselves in and everything. It isn't kind of like just an unnatural boom, here's a musical number. It feels like that there's an actual flow to it.
Oh yeah, but most of the great musicals do that, is where they have that plot point and everything, and then boom, there comes a song. And some movies do work that way, where they just randomly do songs out of nowhere, and it kind of fits with the vibe. But yeah, this movie does fit those things pretty well when it comes to the actual plot and the way the music is done. I guess when it comes to really the writing, the only thing that I had a problem with really was the actual plot, which is pretty sad to a certain extent, but then again, like, I can look past it and enjoy the movie. Direction. Landis is not a bad director. He's actually pretty good. He knows how to frame a shot very well. And I think the action sequences are pretty well shot in this. I think the musical numbers are really well done, though. The vibe of the film is that these guys, every person in this film is indestructible. Like, some of the worst things happen to them. They get blown up. They get shot. They get into a 30-car pileup. They they go through all these traumatic and, like, destructive things, and they come out there, like, brushing their coats, going, well, that's a mess. Anyway, and it fits with the vibe of the film really well in this. And Landis directs this film kind of like a cartoon to a certain extent, and it actually works really well, especially when a lot of the broad and crazy things happen in this film. Other than that, I mean, like, the main sequences, the action and the musical sequences are done very well. The rest of it is fine. Like, I don't see much else I can talk about with the direction. I kind of come off with a very, very similar take as well too. Just I love the flow into the musical numbers because it doesn't feel unnatural and shoehorned, and just how it's written that they kind of go from plot point to musical. Absolutely brilliant stuff. And then even kind of the wind down from the musical number back into sort of the plot line, it seems that there is a rhythm and flow to that too, which I thought was great. The plot stuff, while a bit wooden and a bit corny, it works. I mean, it's not like the gold standard of writing or anything, but I mean, I'd say it's fairly serviceable enough. But at the same time, just, you're right about the whole oddness of the Deus Ex Machina machine sort of working its way about where nobody gets hurt, nobody gets morbidly injured or anything. It's just kind of odd and almost, like you mentioned, cartoonish that, you know, just there could be a massive 30-car pileup, but coincidentally nobody dies. But I think that it adds to the charm. I think it's actually kind of funny in this movie. Where,
oh yeah, it absolutely is.
Where literally the main characters get blown up, and there is rubble around them, and they just get out of the rubble and go, well, let's get to the car. I'm like, I think that's kind of funny. I think the comedy, the slapstick nature, and the weird, the funny and odd way that this film runs is actually pretty good. I guess, like I said in the writing, I feel like it was way too long, and it should have been pared down significantly. But as for the direction's not bad. I like it. I like the feel of the film. And I think Landis hit that right in the head really nicely. So let's get into final thoughts. I enjoyed The Blues Brothers. I am a musical fan. I do like watching musicals. And the musical part and the comedic parts are actually its strongest suit in this film, especially when you have all these musical greats that are in the movie as well, like James Brown, Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles, and they add to the movie, which is, I think, the best part about this, is that you don't have to excuse them for being in there. Go, oh, you know, he's there, so whatever. They actually add to what's in the movie, which I really did appreciate and enjoy. But like I've said in the review, this movie's way too damn long. I'm thinking about it now, and if this was an hour and 30, hour and 45 minutes, I think this film would have been excellent. But because the film dragged, and you have these plot points that just seemed unnecessary, and the film ended way too long, I have to knock it down a couple of points. So I'm going to give this movie 3 stars out of 5. I think if they pared this down, this would have been a 4. But yeah, 3 stars out of 5 for me for The Blues Brothers.
I'm probably going to be on a little bit more of a positive note. I'll probably give it an 80%.
Okay.
But I think it's mostly because of the fact that I think the musical numbers are really what sets us apart and everything. Because the musical numbers are great. They don't kind of find corny ways to shoehorn them in and everything. And even just transitioning from the end of a musical number back into the plot, it just seems very natural. It doesn't seem like, oh, well, we hired pop artist so-and-so to do this song, so we have to do this song, and we have to do it right the fuck now. And because that's how it feels in some like other movies where they'll contract like a famous artist to do a song or whatever. Sometimes it just feels like some movies just go, oh, well, you know, all the kids like this artist. In theory, we got to shoehorn whatever like the hottest song of this artist is, and I don't know, you guys figure it the fuck out, and, you know, just cram it in there somewhere.
Yeah. It's kind of like in Austin Powers, and this kind of works in Austin Powers too, where he's like, "Ladies and gentlemen, Burt Bacharach." It's kind of like how they do that in that sense. Or they do that in a lot of TV shows too, where randomly they stop the scene and then, oh, there's this new artist and we're going to highlight them or something along those lines. Yeah, I find that corny too. But I do like how they weave these artists into the plot and how they work. It really feels like that these artists were invested in the movie as well, which a lot of artists aren't like that at all. They just say, oh, yeah, I'll do this for 5 minutes, get my paycheck, and my song will be on another movie. Great. That's awesome. So I definitely like this. I agree with you. The musical sequences are excellent in this movie, and the way that they integrate in the plot is really good, too. I guess I'm just kind of surprised that you are not penalizing it as much for the length, because did the length not bother you, or was the length not as bothersome as it was for me?
The length seemed more kind of like a minor quibble to me. It's just like, it's running a bit long, but, there could have been some fine tuning, but, it's not an overall disaster or something.
I don't think it's a disaster. I just think that if it was pared down to the main essence of the film, I think it would have been a much better film. And I know there's some people who enjoy the car chase sequence at the end, or they enjoy certain aspects of the plot, but I just don't think the plot is necessary for the film to run as well as it is. So that's my thing. And again, I'm much more picky about stuff. So when things start to nag on me, they start to nag. So, and I think that's what happened with me in this film. I started enjoying parts of the film, and then the film started to drag, and I was like, okay, can we move it along? So, yeah. 3 out of 5 stars for me. 80% for you, Zero?
Yeah.
Definitely watch this, but bear in mind, it's about 2 hours and 15 minutes, which I was completely surprised by. So, we like the Blues Brothers. Check it out if you haven't seen it yet. Okay, Zero, so we are done with this episode, and we're going to move on to another movie. Why don't you tell us what is the movie we're going to be watching next week?
A Millennium Actress by Satoshi Kon.
Ah, yes, Satoshi Kon. What movies of Satoshi Kon have you seen, if I can ask you that question?
I can't remember for the life of me.
Have you seen Perfect Blue?
Have not.
Have you seen any of his films? Oh my god. Hold on.
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest.
Hold on a second. We're going to go over... so, Tokyo... you probably haven't seen Tokyo Godfathers.
I did, actually.
You've seen Tokyo Godfathers. That is such a cute movie.
That was actually for a writing appreciation class at a community college, oddly enough. The professor had sort of stumbled into Japanese anime and sort of built her entire curriculum around just like writing appreciation in anime. So it was a really fun class, and that sort of introduced me to a whole bunch of stuff. And I think that was literally the first writing assignment that we did. Just she had us watch through that, and then after that, just all right, I want you to write like a quick essay on just what you thought of it and everything, and all this other stuff, and you have 30 minutes, go.
Did you watch Paranoia Agent? I guess that's a series that he did.
I did not.
Okay. So you are pretty green on Satoshi Kon, except for like Tokyo Godfathers, which is, I think, his... Not that... I don't want to say his least liked, but it's the one that people talk about the least. With Kon, they talk about Perfect Blue and Paprika, and sometimes Millennium Actress, but they really do not talk about Tokyo Godfathers, which, again, is a great movie. I thought that was actually very good. So yeah, I am excited. I've wanted to watch Millennium Actress for a while, and I know you're into anime, so this should be perfect. We're going to watch Millennium Actress, directed by Satoshi Kon. Were you interested in watching this, or were you not even aware this existed?
It's been something that has been on my list. It's just been one of those things I've just kind of procrastinated on. It's like, I'll watch it sometime.
All right. And that's the best thing about this podcast, is that once we come up with something, we're going to watch it, and then that's it. There are so many films that I keep saying to myself, oh yeah, I'll watch it one day, and I never do. Like, I would have never watched Gentleman in January if it wasn't for this podcast, because there would have been so many excuses for me not to watch that movie. But I'm glad I did, even though I was kind of on it. So, yeah, that's what I love about this film podcast, I should say. So, Tune in next week to where me and Zero review and discuss Satoshi Kon's Millennium Actress. I am The Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
And we'll talk to you next time. Bye.